What's going on? Today I have the 2020 Chevrolet Custom. Now, all the things that I see on YouTube, especially from some of the big car reviews, the press cars, they're all the high-end expensive vehicles. And I've had a couple expensive Silverados myself, like 50, 60 grand to review. That's why I'm bringing this one out. Can you really get a full-size truck for under $30,000? That's not a work truck? The answer is yes, and that's this one right here. This is priced at about $29,000. That's with the discount, so that's the full disclosure here. The MSRP is like $38,000, but it's listed for 29 grand. And I wanted to show that to you and show you everything that you get with this lower model Chevrolet Silverado Custom right here. Let's get started. Real quick, I want to give you a big thank you to my friends at Britain Chevrolet here in Greenville, Texas. They were generous to let me take this out and show you. If you're looking for a Chevrolet or you live in the DFW area, be sure to check them out or check them out online. I'll put their information below. Let's take a look at this 2020 Chevy Silverado Custom exterior first. Thank you so much for tuning in. So I have reviewed the High Country and the Trail Boss previously. So if you want to see everything that comes with those and test drives of those and all of the features you get with them, please be sure to look in the description. I'll put a link to those below. So this trim is just above the work truck. It is definitely a lower trim Silverado, and I just wanted to show you everything that you get with the vehicle at this price. It was redesigned in 2019, which gave it a longer wheelbase, a wider and taller stance, way more cargo volume, and it lost up to 450 pounds using aluminum on the doors, the hood, the tailgate, and the frame is even 88 pounds lighter, but 10% more rigid. So up front, we get halogen reflectors with halogen daytime running lights instead of the LEDs that you will see on some of the higher trims. You could always swap in some LED headlights, which I would recommend, and I have a link to the ones that I personally use below. You get body colored bumpers, a body colored grille bar going right across the grille with black inserts. It has a big, bold face, typical split headlight design, and even functional air curtains on the side of the front of the vehicle. This color is the shadow gray metallic, which looks nice on this truck. It really does. It's got a little bit of a flake from that metallic in it. It's a unique color, something you don't always see, and I'm a fan of it. And it has these 20-inch wheels with 275 60 series tires that are all-season tires. I would personally put all-terrain on there. You got black mirrors and black door handles, and our mirrors even have a little extra, you call it a blind spot or towing mirror, which is nice on this trim. And then coming around the back, we have our bumper steps integrated into the bumper, of course, which are super convenient. I'll show you in a little bit. The signature LED tail lamps. And the dual exhaust is optional with the 5.3 V8, but since we don't have that, we've got the one exhaust tip, which is chrome. One thing that I would definitely recommend for any of you that go with a two-wheel drive truck, just like this one, is to get the G80 locker, the electronic locking rear from Chevrolet. They offer it, and it's great. I had it on my 2006 Silverado. I still had four-wheel drive, but I didn't have to put it in four-wheel drive as much because with that locker, I can't remember the number, but you get some slip on one wheel, the other one will lock up. So if that one's getting power over there, you get some spin, this one's gonna lock up, so you've got positive traction, at least for a certain speed until you don't need it anymore. The cargo area is where there was probably the biggest change made for at least the superficial part of this Silverado. With this trim, we don't have the gently lowering tailgate, but it's actually really light. So you can get the easy lift and power lockable tailgate optional. We don't have it though. And the nice thing is, even though I don't have a bed liner in here, this tailgate is still lined. Now for those of you that might have some mobility issues, getting into the back of the truck is made easier just without even carrying a ladder or anything. You've got the bumper steps, you've got a grab handle right here, and it's not too bad if you've got some decent mobility and strength in your legs to get in and out. And there's a pretty big opening right here, which was actually revised for 2019. Now the big thing with the back of the Silverado is that this part outside of the wheel well is wider than the last generation. So you can shove more stuff in here. It's just a bigger box. There's more cubic space. And one nice thing is that you've got 3 tie downs in every corner. So you've got 12 standard tie downs. Each corner is rated at 500 pounds. And you can get optional removable tie downs to go with that. And of course, every truck gets bed lighting, but LED is optional. And one more thing, standard on here, each rail has a plastic cover over it, so you don't really have to worry about that getting scratched up. Now getting inside the Silverado, this is a fairly tall riding truck. I'm 5'9", not very tall, but I don't have mobility issues. If you do, just know that you have a big grab handle on this side and on that passenger side. And it's really not too bad getting in and out. Now this 2020 Silverado Custom is going to come with the jet black interior. They are cloth seats. The one thing about them is they're kind of stiff. That's the only thing. I'm sure they'll break in, but they're just kind of stiff, stiffer than I would expect. Not much for bolstering. There's a little bit that hugs you, but overall, I'm fine in here. I'm comfortable. There's 4-way manual seats, just forward, backwards, and reclining. The one thing I'd like to see added is lumbar support, at least a little adjustment knob, but there's not in this truck. The good thing though, however, is there's a ton of space. There's a ton of headroom right here. I mean, geez, you could put a whole nother head on top of my body and I think I'd be okay. Legroom, hip room is good. And standard for us here as well is the bench seat with the folding armrest, and I'll show you this and the rest of the interior in just a sec. The interior of the Silverado was redone for 2019 and it was more evolutionary than revolutionary, and I'd love to know your input on this. It's very similar to some of the older generation Silverados. On this lower trim of the Silverado, all this upper door paneling is hard touch, so if you like to put your elbow up there, that is hard. You've got a rubber material right here, which probably is actually more durable, a little bit longer lasting than some of the soft, squishy stuff. Good storage down below. My bottle fits. You've got a nice grab handle right here as well. On the inside, you got your basic lighting controls, your cargo lights as well. The steering wheel is polyurethane, no leather wrap on here. I like the big opening down here and the grips that we have. Otherwise, there's no actual like bulky grips up above, but I like the actual spoke design on this. One complaint though is we have our normal cruise control settings here, but we don't have any radio controls or any controls for our center display. Let me go ahead and show you that. So the gauges are easy to read, nice and clear, pretty large, very similar to what you'll see in other Silverados. So the one thing is that if you want to change information here, you have to reach past the steering wheel and twist this little knob. But I'll scroll through all this information. There's still some useful, helpful information, which is nice. Even your brake pad life, which you don't see on very many vehicles, transmission fluid, if you've been towing, all that good stuff. So still some helpful information, but it'd be nice to have the controls on the steering wheel and even the radio controls. One thing that I do like in a, just a simple truck is we have a column shifter. No push button start either, just a regular key. So you've got some of the old things that you used to have in the last generation and older generations still in here instead of all the modern tech that you see in the new vehicles. Right up above, you've got a nice storage bin. There's a little rubber lining on there as well, so stuff doesn't slide around. Very nice, very useful. Good placement of the vent. Pretty good reach to your face, even to the back seat if you wanted to. We have a 7-inch information screen right here, our touch screen, instead of like an 8-inch on the bigger models. Everything is pretty simple to use. We have Bluetooth, still voice commands with your phone, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Sirius XM is optional, not standard on here, nor is HD radio. We do have a backup camera, which is standard of course, and you've got dynamic lines. The one thing you don't have is the hitch guidance, where there's a dotted line right in the middle to help you back directly up to your hitch. But you can literally see your hitch if there's one sticking off the back of here, so that's not a problem. And another thing is the trailering package is optional, which would give you the hitch guidance, trailer brake controller as well. The screen itself has a wrapping on it because it's brand new, of course. I don't want to mess with that. It's very responsive. It's not super slow. There's still some things that you can customize in here. It's got all the basic necessities that you would need. There are a couple physical buttons down here. You got a volume knob, seek, home, so you can control some of it without your fingers and with gloves on. You've got regular manual climate controls, nothing complicated. Hazards down below, traction control, and your tow haul mode right there. We've got one USB port and one 12-volt power outlet. And one of my favorite things about these Silverados is the fact that we got this double storage area right here. The glove box, you've got this smaller one up above, and you've got a locking glove box down below that is bigger. The center console does have some really nice soft padding right here. You've got a pretty decent little storage cubby here, here, and here. These all have plastic inside. It'd be nice if they offered maybe a little rubber liner just like this one. So this one you can put your phone, it won't slide around or anything like that. These cup holders are kind of small. You can take this insert out if you need to. And one nice thing is that we have this handle, so you can just easily lift that up out of the way. Have your middle passenger. Now I believe on some of the upper trims with bench seats you get a pull up where there's storage under here, but this one does not have that, nor does it have storage inside of this armrest. So this whole thing is just solid. This doesn't fold up or anything like that. There's nothing fancy going on up above. There's no sunroof in here. You've got regular lighting controls and just a regular manual flip mirror to dim it, and no garage controls in here. We do have a pretty large visor. There's no vanity light in here, but I'm guessing most of you probably won't use that. The same thing goes with the back seat. You've got a nice big grab handle right here. Still kind of a tall vehicle to get into, but once you're in, you're pretty good. And I'm only saying this for those of you that might worry about mobility. Just know that you've got this big grab handle, and of course you can put some sidebars on. This back door is pretty much the same as the front door with storage below, same materials on it. One nice thing back here, on the last generation, I don't think we had any rear air vents at all on any trim. But guess what? Even on this trim, we've got 2 air vents back here right at the bottom of the center console, which is nice. This back seat is just really big and spacious. That's another improvement. Chevrolet stretched it out with the longer wheelbase, put more space back here, and it's great. It's very welcome, super nice to have. I've still got good headroom. There's no center folding armrest on our trim, but that is optional, as well as the in-seat storage bins, and I've shown you that in those other trucks, which is pretty cool. Just a little extra cubby. Underneath of these seats you can shove a carry-on suitcase, tons of space underneath, and you can fold them both up, a 60-40 split with a nice flat load floor. Now under the hood for this 2020 Chevy Silverado Custom, you've got 3 different engine options, and I'm going to give you a little fun fact at the end of this, because I used to own a Silverado in 2006, a 2006 Silverado. And there's kind of an interesting stat that I want to show you. So those engine options are a 2.7 liter turbocharged engine, a 5.3 liter V8 that most of you are familiar with, and then this standard on this trim, 4.3 liter V6. And definitely don't discount this, because it's got 285 horsepower and 305 pound-feet of torque. It's paired with a 6-speed automatic. And the fun fact is that I had the 4.8 liter V8 in that 2006 Silverado, and it put out 285 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. So the same horsepower, but this puts out more torque, and it's a V6 now, and it's more efficient. Not to say I prefer a V6 over a V8, but just saying these V6s have come a long ways. This particular model does have the active fuel management with direct injection, and that will give it 16 miles per gallon in the city, 21 highway for 2-wheel drive, and you'll lose 1 mile per gallon with 4-wheel drive. So towing configurations vary quite a bit depending on the truck, the engine, the gear ratio. So there's a lot to think about. The max for this custom model, or this V6 on this truck, is 7,900, but as equipped that we have right here, it's 7,700 pounds of max towing, and the payload is 2,040 pounds. All right, thank you everyone so much for sticking around for the test drive. Now, I apologize, I forgot my mount. That gives me a little bit better visibility, and usually I like to use the sunroof anyways, but so I hope that this is okay with you guys. We'll do a short test drive here. I'm really curious to see how this V6 does. That's what I'm really curious about. This is the 2-wheel drive model, so it's a little bit more efficient. Like I said, I would definitely recommend getting the locking differential if you can. If you're not going to be doing any kind of slippery situations or anything, then you don't need it, but it's just nice to have. You just never know. One thing I like about the Silverado is I like the big beefy hood that we get up front. It's definitely a commanding view of the road. These seats in this truck can't move up and down, and the pedals don't move in this one. So pedals don't move in any of them anymore, actually. So you'd have to want to get in here to see if you fit comfortably, but I'm comfortable. One thing I forgot to mention is that the steering wheel, it tilts, but it doesn't telescope on this trim. Upper trims, it will telescope. But right off the bat, just first impression of this V6 is that everything feels smooth so far. The 6-speed automatic, nothing complicated there. 4.3 liter V6, so much more power than the older V6s used to have. Now the braking feel on the Silverado is pretty good. Another little acceleration there. It really sounds pretty good, especially for a V6. On the brakes a little more. This probably has the Duralife rotors. And the thing about this V6 is that the torque, the 305 pound-feet of torque, actually comes out a little earlier than it does, I believe, in the V8. So you kind of take advantage of the torque a little more here. And in fact, the older V8s, like I think the 5.3 when I was looking, or when I owned my truck, didn't have a whole lot more power than this either. So this is impressive. And the towing capabilities, of course, are nowhere near the 6.2 or the 5.3. But if you're not towing heavy loads on a regular basis, this would be just fine. And you can still get the trailering package here, where you get a trailer brake controller and the hitch guidance, which is nice to have. So one thing that Chevrolet did with the 2019 redesign is enhance the ride comfort a little bit. And it's very hard to tell, but you don't get nearly as much of the jitteriness as you do in some of the older generations. Of course, you've still got the live axle, you've still got a truck frame, ladder frame, so you're not going to be super smooth, but it's actually quite comfortable. And some of the rougher stuff back there, it just soaks it up. And that's what it does its best on, is some, rougher pavement or having a little bit of a load on the truck. So that's something to think about. The overall steering feel, it's not bad. It handles pretty well, actually. In fact, if I remember right, it handles better than the F-150 does. There's pedal down. So the horsepower is the thing that's lacking the most on this truck, and it's not bad at all, really. I mean, that is perfectly acceptable for most people. And if you don't need to tow a whole bunch, then don't worry. You don't need the 5.3, and you can get into a full-size truck with all that crew cab space for a decent price. Let's get on it from a stop. Pretty swift, not even pedaled down there. And now this road that we're on actually kind of throws you around a little bit. It's very uneven, and it really can get you uncomfortable in some vehicles. And the surprising thing is that the Silverado actually feels really well planted. In some vehicles, when you kind of hit some bumps, it almost feels like you're getting some air, like it's spring loaded. But it feels like it's pretty substantial, it feels stable. And I'm sure that will definitely play into when you're towing as well. And like I told you, this truck is two-wheel drive, but of course you can get four-wheel drive, and I would always get a four-wheel drive with a truck, because you just never know what you're gonna get into, and a lot of times most of you are gonna want and need that anyways. The one thing that has really surprised me about the Silverados is just how quiet they are. So this generation Silverado, I tested the high country decibel ratings, and it was extremely quiet, super quiet, which makes a huge difference if you're going to be in your truck a lot. Like commuting in your truck, if you spend a good amount of time, if you're going to drive a couple hours to go fishing, something that's not going to be exhaustingly loud is excellent. And this is still quiet. This doesn't have the laminated glass like the upper trims, but it's still quiet. You don't hear a whole lot of that V6 sound either. I'm sure you guys can tell that, but I actually hear some of the exhaust, which is kind of cool. So, and there actually wasn't even insulation under the hood, which is fine. Now this 6-speed, not as many gears to go through. That 10-speed that I was in was really smooth. The 6-speed is gonna hold the gear a little bit longer than that 10-speed. Overall, full-size trucks, they definitely drive nicer than they used to. They feel more comfortable, they're smoother, they're quieter. They're just nice trucks to drive. I really enjoy spending time in a full-size truck. So what do you think of this 2020 Chevrolet Silverado Custom for this price? Listed at 29 grand, MSRP about 38 grand. What do you think? What's the value like? I'd love to hear your feedback down below. If you want to see a higher trim like the LT Trail Boss or the High Country, I've got reviews of those in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out a couple other videos and subscribe for more weekly videos. Have a great rest of your day.